Hello one more time. Welcome to Learn Python the Hard Way, exercise 38, where we're going to learn more about lists. Lists become very important because you need a way to store data. And in older programming languages, you had to implement all your own storage. And in fact, in my next book, Learn More Python, I teach you how to implement a list in your own storage in dictionaries. But for now, you just need to learn how to work with lists of things. And this exercise covers it. I'm going to cover a few things that are a little more interactive. So the first part is this little block of code here, okay? And I've started my Python. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that class thing. And this is demonstrating a common error that you run into. Okay, so this class is actually wrong, okay? So when I do, if I were to make thing, let's say I'm going to do a equals thing, okay? And then I try to call that test message, okay? Oh, that's wrong. Okay, I get this. Test takes one positional argument, but two were given. Okay, it's very weird. It's sort of like if I made a function called print me, right? Or no, let's just do this. Thing test. And I said it has message, okay? Okay, if I try to call thing test with hi, it's very similar to what I just did up there. That works, and that's what we expect to happen up here. Okay, but the thing is, it's almost as if I'm calling it with something like that, like with an extra parameter. See how the error message is things test takes one positional argument, and up here it says it takes one positional argument. Okay, we're going to get into this later, but this is exactly why sometimes you get these weird errors where when you do something to a list, it expects an argument and it says, I need 2, but you gave it, like you failed to give it 1. So we'll do a real quick example. Let's say I'm going to do j equals 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now, if I want to append 4, right? That works. But if I call append with no arguments, append takes exactly one argument, 0 given. See, something weird is going on here where it's saying it's off by 1. So remember the off by 1 error? It's almost as if there's some secret hidden argument being passed to these functions. And that's something we're going to get into later. But what's happening is j.append is actually getting the list j and what you're doing. In a lot of ways, it's almost as if it's something like list append, and you pass it j and then the number to append to. In a way, you could write this function. So if you made your own list, you could write a function called list append, and then you could say, pass me a list and a number, and I'll append it. So what Python's doing is it's sort of flipping this around. It's inverting it. It takes the j off, it moves over here, does j dot. And then when it actually calls the function in j, it's passing in j as an extra argument. Okay, we're going to get into a lot of that later, but this is sort of like priming your brain to think about this. This kind of weird sort of like backflip of that makes object-oriented programming difficult. Now, once you've got that, once you've sort of got an idea of what that is, so once you've got that, that's just sort of like anytime you see this sort of weird one argument wasn't given but actually expected 0, it's like off by 1, just know that that's the reason why. This will help you solve some of your bugs later. So now we have this code we're going to work with, okay? So the thing that we want to do with this code is to understand all of the functions being called on strings and lists, okay? And this is sort of our first jump into object-oriented programming. The way to think about object-oriented programming is anytime you see the dot, that dot right there, you're dealing with an object, okay? And because you're using the dot to send that object some message or to split, call a function, append, things like that. So let's walk through this whole thing right here. So first, I just make a string And then I use dot split. So you've done that in the past, and we're basically telling the string, hey, string, named 10 things, split yourself, breaking on any of the space characters. Now, I have another list called more stuff, day, night, song, frisbee, corn. It's just random. Now, I'm using a while loop mostly so you get some practice with while loops, but also because we're going to use this function here, okay? So what we're going to do is, and we're using that function, we're going to modify the contents of stuff and more stuff, and we'll stop when the while loop, right? When the while loop gets to the end, when we've got 10, all right? So what happens is we come in, the length of stuff is not 10. Then we're going to pop one off. So pop, you did this in back when you were doing exercise 24, where you're pushing and popping onto some of the, or popping off of the list when you made the words. So in this, we're doing that too. And remember, what that does is it takes the element off. So let's just see what that does. Remember, anytime you don't know what something does, just go and play in the Python shell. Okay, so I believe it will pop 1 off. Nope, it pops 3 off. See, that's how you do it. It's good to try to make a guess, and then you can see if you get your guess right. It's easier to sort of update your information. It also keeps you intellectually honest. So it's going to pop more stuff here. It's going to pop boy off, okay? And then it's going to append boy to stuff, and it's going to keep doing this until the length of stuff is 10. All right, so now, here's the thing that makes Python really kind of weird. So you call len, right? There's some functions you call on things, right? And those call special functions on the things. And there's some functions you call by doing a dot. There's reasons for it based on the design of Python. It would be way better if stuff had something like more like this, right? Okay, it'd be way better if stuff was something more like that, but it doesn't have that when we have length everywhere. So you just got to get used to that. And then it keeps going. Once length is 10, the while loop stops. Now we do this. We do some printing out what stuff is, and then we're going to do some access. So remember, we already talked about 1, right? That's not the first one. That's the second one. Remember that. And then the -1 is going to be the last one. And then we can pop, take something off the end. And then we can also join. So now this is weird. What join does is we're telling the string space to join itself between all the elements of stuff. Super weird, right? Like normally you would think you would say stuff, join yourself with this string, but it sort of makes sense. Strings are in charge of making strings. So all the functions for dealing with strings are on the string. And so what we do is we tell string, hey, join this stuff. That's it. And then we do another one where we join with pound symbols between them. Okay, so let's just run this super quick. All right, there we go. So, yep, we popped boy off, then girl, then banana, then corn. And when you look at the thing, yep, boy and girl and banana and corn. It should be that it's 10. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there we go. And then we pop some more things on and off. Okay. Now, debugging this. So again, debugging is all about printing the information. So let's say we get down here and we do, while length is, let's say we mess this up somehow. I can't really think off the top of my head how we could do this, but, oh yeah, here we go. Let's say we did this wrong. We did this more stuff. Remember, more stuff is decreasing. So it will probably never, it will like always be not equal to 10, right? Because it's decreasing. It's going to go down to 0 and then just stop. Okay. So we got this bug. It's going to keep going until pop is empty. And then when you try to pop from an empty list, it causes an error. Okay. How would you debug this? Well, the first thing, of course, you would do is you would do kind of what I'm doing here. Printing and with what you're adding and whatnot. But you might also do print enter while more stuff equals, and then repr more stuff. Remember, repr is the representation. Okay, so now when we do that, we can kind of see right away, bam, it goes down in length until it's 0. If you still couldn't see that, you could then do one more thing. One more thing like that. And you could see the length going down, which would then tell you, okay, that's why it's not there. You could also come down and do another one at the bottom where you did this if you were trying to figure out how it was changing. So that's the first way you debug it. You can print out all these lists to see what's happening to them. It's all about printing the lists to see what's happening. One handy function is from, I believe it's pprint, import pprint. Okay. So this is the pretty print. So if I want, I can do pprint more stuff right there. Now, I don't know how useful this is with lists. I think it just pretty much just prints the list. But later when you get into dictionaries, it's very useful because you can have dictionaries. And also, pretty print is useful when there's complicated things inside your lists, like lists inside lists. So just keep that in your back pocket for later. Okay, breaking this. Breaking this, go ahead and break it before you continue with the video, but breaking this is all about, like, basically what I did, messing up this while loop. And actually, let me just go back to where we were. It's all about messing with this while loop. How many different ways can you break this while loop? Incidentally, this is not a good way to do a while loop. Typically, you don't want to be modifying lists of things. Instead, you want to construct a new list and base it less on the destruction of another list. But this comes up, this kind of thing comes up where you want to copy elements from a list and stuff. So this is one of the ways you do it. Another one is using a does not equal, right, is kind of problematic. There's some situations where, let's say stuff was, let me see if I can pull this off. So 10 things times 100. Let's do that. So stuff is going to be pretty huge. See how it's like 500 elements, right? Okay, so if 10 things is really huge, or stuff is really huge, this is going to fail. So how would you fix that? So contemplate that. It's all about thinking about how can that while loop fail. That's the main way to break this. Other ways to break this, indexing into it where things don't exist. Like if I did 11, that's another way to break it. What error do you get? You get an index error. Other problems you might run into, trying to call join, trying to do this stuff. This is how you do it in most other programming languages, and Python's just kind of weird. So a lot of people will do that, and then it'll say list object has no attribute join, right? So that's another error you can cause. It's all about trying to find ways to mess this file up, mess up the logic, and mess up how the while loop works. Okay, that's it. This video plus the text in the book should do you pretty solid for figuring out how lists work and what you can do to them. And the next one we get to dictionaries. Dictionaries are really simple, but for some reason they throw people a curve, so we'll cover that quite a lot.